Welcome back to Speak Up Queen, the podcast where we empower, uplift, and celebrate women who have reclaimed their voices to inspire others. Today, we are excited to welcome the inspiring Frances. So, without further ado, let's welcome Frances to Speak Up Queen.
Hello. Hi, Miss Marika. Hi, everyone. I hope you're well. Thank you for having me.
Frances, what was the most challenging limiting belief you had to overcome, and how did breaking free from it help you reclaim your voice?
Well, last year, so I'm originally from Australia. Last year, we ended up at New York Fashion Week. And could you imagine going from a tiny town? So I'm originally from Townsville, which is very country. And was staying in Brisbane actually at the time I'd moved down, but went from Brisbane to New York Fashion Week, had never done anything like this before, know nothing about the fashion world. And I was calling my dad just before I left. It was literally going on this plane. I was like, I don't know how this is gonna go. Like I'm going to the most biggest thing on the planet for Fashion Week, because I'm a fashion designer. We recently started a business during COVID where we upcycle materials and we bring people together from all different backgrounds. It doesn't matter if you're a professional model or have never modeled. But we also work with people who are domestic violence victims and people who have been doing this for a long time. So we bring them together through personal experience. But I jumped on this plane and ended up in New York. Now, I hadn't been back to the States in almost 30 years. So you could imagine it's very different. And at the time, I was with family. I was basically going to the other side of the world, didn't know anybody, knew nothing about what was about to like happen and everything like that. So I jumped on this plane, ended up there, and then I had WhatsApp. I was like, you need to get WhatsApp, Dad, and you need to talk to me and all this sort of thing. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, even before we were just about to get on the stage, I was like, I don't know how this is gonna go because we actually were a little low on funding, but we were very lucky. I don't know, something just popped up and we ended up managing to go on. And because I was like, what am I going to say to people? I don't know, because they're already at the back and on the back of the stage, we're waiting to go. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, I don't want to, we're already here, the disappointment, like what am I going to say to them if we don't go on? But a miracle happened, and then we ended up doing this. And yeah, it turned out really great. And all the people that modeled for us now, we're just really good friends. And they keep in touch with one another. And then even one of the other girls, she was a domestic violence victim, and she had been watching a lot of YouTube. And she was like, oh, I don't know if I want to go on. And I said, you have just flown from Africa to New York. And she had never been out here either, but we had met because she studied with me in Australia. So that's how we met. And I'm like, you're going out there. If I flew all the way for this, you're going out there too. I'm going to push you out there. And so both of us were sort of like, okay, because, we had different shapes and sizes, different heights. And a lot of the other people that were on before us or after us, they've been in the industry for decades. They've been in, doing the fashion industry, had everything ready. And we didn't have half of that, nothing really. So I think that was one of the challenging things because you just sort of throw yourself in there in the deep end and you're like, okay, I don't know how this is going to go, but we're here anyway, let's just do it. And we did. And yeah, that was pretty much the start of our career, really. So I think that was definitely a challenging thing, even though I've always sort of done that, but I think that was definitely because I was like, I'm going to go home, I'm ready to go home, like, but my dad was like, you're already there, just do this. I'm like, okay, cool.
Can you share when someone's words or actions made you feel small and how you found the strength to rise above it?
I had I had a very close friend of mine. It was just before we even started doing this show. And I said, oh, one day I'm gonna take you with me. We're gonna go to all these events, blah 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 blah. And then I thought we were very close because we hanged out every day. We always talked about everything. And I kept their secrets, and I still do, of course. But like, they one day turned around and said was, it's you're not gonna make it. You're gonna fail. And that really hurt me because that was really, someone close to me, someone I thought, oh yeah, they really believed in me. And then, as we started getting bigger and everything, I haven't heard from them since then, but I think one of the biggest things is that you never know when people come back to you. And since we've started this whole business, we've had people that have come back to us, people I haven't seen in decades, whether we've had a falling out and they said, oh, I've seen you doing this, I've seen you doing that. And I said, oh, okay, So now I'm cautious about the people that I have. And, when you start something like this, whether it's a business, whatever it may be, there's always going to be people who are close to you who are going to say something. And it doesn't have to be a friend, it can be family. I've got some family members who were like, business? What business? But they haven't been paying attention to what we do, so things like that. And that's, I think, the hardest thing as well, because you really want that inner circle to believe in you. And, some of the biggest people that I've got who are supporting me, I haven't even met them. And, with COVID, we've created a safe space on the internet, whether it's Facebook groups. And I'm not saying that, some of the groups, they're not bad or good or whatever the case may be. I mean, social media, you always have to defend yourself now, but I mean, there's certain spaces that are actually really safe for people to express how they feel without being judged. And some of these people I've met, I've been talking to them for maybe like 2 years now, 2.5 years, and I'm yet to meet them, but we've been talking almost every day than the people I'm close to. And I think, just having those sorts of people around you are really good, So I think that's been one of the really good things. But yeah, it doesn't really matter who you meet, there's always going to be someone who's in your circle.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. What was the first step you took from feeling silence to finding your voice? And how did that step change your life?
I think with the fashion brand that we have created, because we really wanted to advocate for sexual assault in the fashion industry, because it's not being spoken of. It doesn't matter if you're in Australia or if you're in the US. And so recently we've sort of teamed up with a company that we're hoping to work with next year, where they actually are about advocating for human trafficking, sexual assault, and that's what they do on their platform as in the fashion industry. So that's what we're hoping to do. But I think, it took some time because I wasn't too sure if, how people would react. And coming from Australia, the market is a little slow, it's a little small. And, I was wanting to, and I said, oh, we'll just wait till we get a bigger platform. But we've gotten to the point now where we've become a little bit too big that I'm trying to sort of now niche it down. We're getting a website created actually, which will come up in maybe end of the year or early next year. But it's basically to sort of redefine what we actually are advocating for, what we're talking about. And, it was sort of like, oh, just hearing the problems in the industry, everybody's talking about it. And I said, well, what are we doing about it? Like, so now's actually sort of been the time where we're sort of ready to actually start advocating for that, really talk about it. So we've sort of got, this platform where people can sort of express that, but we're still sort of, we're sure, but we're not sure, just because of um how things are in certain different countries. You have to be careful what you say politically. So, we're getting there, but we're hopefully going to make that happen next year. So, yes.
Well, congratulations. What's one
Thank you.
powerful lesson you've learned about self-worth, and how do you carry it with you as you continue to grow and inspire others?
I think the biggest thing about self-worth, or especially for my sake, was even running this business. I came from the other side of the world, had no idea how to run this business, no idea what's going on the other side of the world. I can only be in so many places at once, right? And trying to even understand how to run a business, I have no idea. And, I think the biggest thing about this is that when you look at the reviews, you know, that makes you feel better. And you look at the changes that people have, you know, faced during that time that they've been with us from the start. Like we've had um, one guy, he was an actor, and now he's picked up more modeling gigs. He's been on like all the billboards, you know, in LA to New York. He's working with some of the biggest companies, some of the biggest, you know, movie stars in the world recognize him, you know, all that sort of stuff. We've had people who had zero confidence, were very introverted. We took one lady, her family came out from Canada, and her husband was very introverted. And just from him and the kids going just, you know, to the event for one night, the father just ended up being really extroverted. She's like, I don't know what's happening, but it's really great. Like all of a sudden he's in charge of doing this. He wants to do this. I mean, he just did a TikTok video with him and his wife, and she was like, oh, okay, I don't know, you know, because this had never happened before, you know, in their life. You never see him on camera or anything. And then she was like, they know him more than I do now. Like he's getting all the pictures with everybody. And then even for our friend, you know, the one who was a domestic violence survivor, you know, she had issues where the community wasn't talking to her because culturally it's not an awareness about domestic violence and things like that. But, you know, people have started gaining confidence. And when you see people's changes, that makes you feel good about yourself, because I'm not perfect when I do this. I've made a lot of mistakes, and, you know, I try to own up to it. And, you know, it's been really challenging where, you know, you don't know what to say, you don't know what to do, but you're trying to think of a solution, and there's just so much going on that you're not thinking about everything because you're only one person doing it all. So, you know, but I think, you know, having the self-worth really comes from other people. So that was really something that's helped me.
If you could tell your 17-year-old self one thing, what would it be and why?
I think it would be to just never be afraid. I remember actually just, you know, when I was 10, I think Destiny's Child had been on TV, you know, back in the MTV Awards type thing. And I was like, oh, look, they look like me. I want to be on TV, you know, all that sort of stuff. And I think, you know, because I was actually a shy person. No one believes me when I say that too, by the way. Because like, oh, you're always talking. I'm like, yeah, but years ago you would never see me. I hated singing in front of people. I hated talking in front of people. I didn't like talking to people at all. Now I just don't shut up. My dad's sort of like, that girl can talk underwater. Like you can hear her, you know? And so, you know, I think, you know, when I look at my 7-year-old self and I say why, I'm like, well, why not? Like, you know, there's so many things you can do, you know, it doesn't matter. You just really need to believe in yourself. And that's the hardest part, you know, about doing what you do, actually believing in yourself. But I think the biggest thing about why is, you know, you only get one shot in life. Like, you know, we're not gonna, no, none of us are gonna make it out of here, you know, alive. So you might as well just go do it all. Doesn't matter what's happening. Just try. Even if you don't make it, just try again. Or, you know, if it doesn't work out for you, you'll find something, you know, just make the most of life. So I think that's the biggest thing about why just make life count.
Well, how do you set boundaries to protect your energy and peace? And what have you learned from this practice?
Um, I think since coming back home, I think it's been the difficult thing because all of a sudden I've seen, I don't know whether it's people just wanting me to just do stuff to keep me occupied, or if it's just because now I'm here. Because some people, I didn't hear from them for the last 4 years that I've been away, and I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm here now. So what do you need? And you know, it's been good to, you know, help them, but I think there's a time when I'm sort of like, no, I can't do it because I need to do this thing, or just actually saying no, because it took me a long time to really say no, because people know, oh yeah, she'll do it. She won't say no. She's really kind and all this sort of stuff. But, you know, now coming back, because I've actually got few things to do, you know, with the business and other stuff or whatever it may be. But I've learned to say, can't do it right now. And I'll get back to you. Or, you know, sometimes I just put do not disturb. There's that function on my phone, and yeah, I do check the phone when I can, but I think, you know, that sort of helped me. Or if I'm, you know, if I just don't want to deal with people, I'll just go sit in nature, or, if I get really stressed. But I think, I've realized having boundaries is very important. It doesn't matter how old you are, what you're doing in your business, you need to actually set the boundaries so that people actually understand that, you can't just always cater to them, that you have things to do, and they can manage without you if they haven't seen you for so long. So
Okay. How do you stay grounded when challenges come up now compared to before?
I think I've now sort of worked on actually thinking about it. It used to be I respond quickly or jump back, but I've sort of, even with social media, I'm like, oh, I want to comment on that, but now I'm sort of like, oh, I run a business, so I can't actually say stuff, even though I'm like, okay. And even today, I sort of realized I was talking to someone who I never talked to before. It was through a traveling group, and I'm sitting there going, why am I having this conversation with this person? Like, why am I arguing about travel, and because I know they hadn't traveled and things like that, but it was just like, okay, we don't need to have this conversation, and just sort of wish them well. But I think, with challenges now, I'm sort of actually realizing you don't actually need to respond, or you don't actually need to react at all to somebody, and it doesn't mean that they're wrong and you're wrong, or they're right and you're right. It just means that you don't want to just create conflict for no reason. Just, keep peace, and just, be at peace with yourself.
How do you define thriving today, and what mindset shifts or practices help you embrace that definition?
I think I've been taking meditation. Well, I try to at least try to do early morning meditation, or I go for a run in the morning. That sort of helps me. Definitely music. I love to dance. I always sort of listen to music and everything. So, I think when you're trying to thrive, being an entrepreneur, it's not as easy as it sounds. It has its up and down moments. You're sort of like, is this working? Why is this not working? What's happening? Is the money coming in? Why is it slow? But I think if you really want something, you're going to make it happen. And I think the biggest thing with me was that I couldn't see myself doing anything else. I did try the 9 to 5. I worked at the daycare, and I still work there a little bit, but I think it was just like such long hours, and I was always getting sick. So I've got a low immune system, whereas in the fashion industry, it's really about creating and then showcase. But I mean, all that takes time. So I think those are some of the things that I do to sort of help me, or even talk to friends. There's certain friends you can talk to who are very positive, very encouraging. I think that's the biggest thing about being an entrepreneur. You're never alone, because there's people who are actually in the same space that are actually doing what you do. So I think if you talk to those people, that'll definitely help you as well.
What made you decide to be featured on Speak Up Queen? And how does it feel knowing that there's a safe space for women to share their stories and inspire others?
I think what I loved most was that it was really about courage. And there was a few other people. I think the day before, we were on a podcast in Canada for Rise to Greater Heights. And I think that was a similar thing, where it's really all about yourself rising, or helping other people rise, especially women. Sometimes we just like to bicker so much, against one another, instead of actually encouraging each other. That's what we try to do, in the business that we have. And it's not perfect. There are moments where I'm like, really? Like, but, you can't, as the boss, you have to sort of have a level head. But I think the biggest thing I really liked about speaking up was that it really, is about speaking up and actually sharing what you've experienced. And, when you share your story with somebody else, they might realize, oh, I can relate to that, or, that's happening in my life, and this is what I can do about it. So I think that's a really good thing about speaking up, and people actually have the courage to do that, and they shouldn't be afraid to actually speak up. So
Oh, well. Well, thank you, Francis, for your time. I really appreciate you you are like a bubbly, beautiful flower. And I was just like, oh, wow. She is like amazing. So thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it a lot.
Oh, thank you. And thank you too, Miss Merck. It's so good to speak to you. And I know we're on opposite sides of the country. So hopefully one day we'll get to meet up soon. So